know what's working today is to...
But I was like the most exciting thing.
And then if you were to ask me...
So if you're looking for just research...
All right, we're going to get into today's presentations. First presenters, third time speaking on Online Seller Cruise, the record. Kity Lai. For last 2 years, the topics just blew everybody away. Several like, oh, that paid for the sailing, like that alone right there. What I took away, a lot of those. She's an amazing, amazing person. The secret to successful brand design. Give a hand to Kity Lai.
Okay, thank you for coming, everybody. And really nice to meet most of you on this cruise before this presentation. It's really lovely to be back again. Thank you, Carlos. I've specially designed these slides for you guys specifically. So Carlos is always new to me and to everyone else. So I'm going to talk about the secret to successful brand design and what all brand owners need to know. And it's really important because design is what I do and branding is what I do. And I'm going to introduce myself. If the clicker works. There we go. So about me, I'm a qualified graphic designer. I did a BA Honours in Visual Communication, and I've been designing for the past 25 years. I'm an expert in branding, design, and packaging. I've worked in-house for several retail brands already. I'm multidisciplined in graphic design. What that means is I do 2D, 3D, I can wrap buildings, I can do signage, anything that needs design and branding is my area. And I'm also a multiple business owner. So I started off doing some Amazon as well, which I'll go into. And I also have a sustainable branding business as well. So sustainable fashion clothing line as well. So I think some of us are trying some Kit London sunglasses this morning. So these are the brands I work with in-house, with agencies, and freelance as well. So it's an array of different companies I work through. But my main areas of my experience is working for one company called Ted Baker. So if you know the fashion global brand, I started in 1999. So I worked my way up as a junior designer and managed a team of 8 designers by the time I left. So I was managing all the graphic design, all the packaging, opening stores, and anything that needed the name Ted Baker signed off, that will come through me. I will sign everything off. And then in 2010, I joined Kath Kiston. I was headhunted for this job as a packaging senior designer. And I rebranded everything for Kath. So I worked very closely with the owner of the business and rebranded everything. And you'll still see my designs around the stores and around the world. I see people wearing, you know, the labeling and stuff on the streets, which is really rewarding. So then, after 2016, I was made redundant. I had a little one. My son is now 9, actually. And then through that time, I was getting bored. Spring, summer, autumn, winter campaigns for retail. I decided being redundant was a good thing. And obviously, my son was going to start school. So I decided to do a masterclass in learning how to sell FBA. So I know exactly what you guys are going through. I launched a business in 4 months, joined a mentorship for 1 year. In 6 months, they made me a mentor as well. So I've been mentoring for 3 years, online sellers as well. And then at the same time, I have my own design business called Me Brand. So I started off with personal branding, fell back in love with graphic design and packaging design. And so I do that now. So that's my main core business, is packaging and branding. And also during lockdown, I set up a business with Chris Brown. Actually, he's here, my the co-founder, the fashion business called Kit London. So good design is good business. So I'm here to talk about design, and this is the one thing that brand owners need to understand is about design. I think a lot of you want to save some money on design or design it yourself, but I think it's really important to know the basics and the principles of design. So this is what I'm going to go for a masterclass of design with you. So design is made up of so many components, and it's really hard to know where to start. And I often get people asking me, where do I start with my branding? Where do I start with the logo? Where do I start with design? So I'm going to talk about the 3 main keys to good design. So the first one being typography. I will go through typography and explain how you can better your designs with typography. Then hierarchy is a very important thing when you need to consider design. So I'm going to go through all this with you as well through the talk. And colour. Colour always comes up, and a lot of people just choose their favourite colour for their product or branding, but it's not the case. There is so much more to colour. So, the first key, typography. We all know what typography is. We're faced with it every day. If it's not on your t-shirts, it's on the signage, it's on the newspapers, on TV. We see type everywhere. But how does that apply to your designs? Well, we use it every day, and there are 4 to 5 main popular fonts that we use. And they are the serif fonts, the sans serifs, slabs, script, and decorative. You will see that, and a lot of you will probably use that on your emails or your branding or your layouts. But those are the main things that we use. But how? How do we use them? How do we make our layouts look great? So I use a system called font pairing. So has anyone used font pairing here? You have? Yes, yeah. Yeah. So font pairing is putting 2 complementary fonts together to make your layout stand out. And it's basically helping you to put together assets for your brand as well. So you need to consider generally like 2 to 3 fonts. I generally use 2, and you put them together to help you pair a font. And I'll show you some examples actually, so it makes sense. Pairing a font, it needs to be different as well. So opposite types of fonts, like a script font with a generic sans serif or serif font, would really help your designs. And then also using contrast as well. So I talked about hierarchy, but there's a system of using hierarchy. And then also to play with the weights and the fonts. So you've got your bold, your thins, and your normal types of fonts. Please ask any questions if I'm going way too over your heads on this. So font pairing, they need to be distinctive enough. So I've given an example of a good pairing and a bad pairing. So a good pairing would be something like a script or decorative font, and then pair it with something very generic and simple. So for this example, I've used Gill Sans, which is one of my favorite fonts actually. I just use it on most things. But it's nice and simple, it's laid out well. You can see what the headline is for this. Whereas a bad pair, if you're using 2 similar fonts, they will sort of clash. So you don't want to do that. So whether you're doing a layout or your packaging or your design on your products, make sure you're not clashing with your fonts. So here is a table for your font pairing. So I've laid it out really easily for you guys. So you don't want to pair your decorative font with a script or another decorative. Sans serif, you can literally pair it with anything. Again, with the serif as well, because they're so generic, but they can pair really well with a script font. So this will give you a really good idea when you consider your design layouts. And what makes good design layout? Anyone? Anyone have any guesses? Yep. Good one. Anyone else?
Good amount of space.
Yes.
Hierarchy.
Yes.
Eye trail.
What's that?
Eye trail.
Eye trail. Yep. Good.
White space.
Yes. Everything. So, placement of the logo, the image of the text, so where you're laying out on the page, the hierarchy and the type and the image that you're putting on the page, the alignment, the balance, the proportions and scales, the readability, the color, it being copy-checked, a white space and contrast. There's so many components that make a good layout, and it's always, you need to sort of be mindful of all these things when you're designing. So, hierarchy. Who knows what I'm talking about when I say hierarchy? You do, yeah. So, ignoring the rules of hierarchy. If you put things in the wrong place, it's going to draw your eye to the wrong direction. So, you need to make sure on your designs, you want to guide the viewer where you want to go. And it's about the message. And especially when you consider packaging, it's not the logo that you want them to see first, it's the product. What is the product? And then there's a whole trail of how you should lay out your design. And it should be considered, not just plonked on a page. So hierarchy is organising type in in importance, and it helps guide the reader's eye. So in this example, without hierarchy, you can see if you're just using a trail, a headline, subheader, and the copy, if it's all the same weight and the same font, the reader's going to get lost. It's just going to be noise, visual noise. You don't want that. You want to really highlight that this is a headline, this is the subheader, and this is what the extra information that you need on your packaging or product or layout. And then it's making things readable. I say legible, but I changed it to readable. I don't know if it's more American. So it's really considering the line height. I call it leading in design. So the line height is about the spacing between your sentences. So I'm going to call this the Goldilocks in design. So if it's too tight, it's going to be too hard to read. You're going to struggle a little bit. You can still read it, but you'll struggle. If it's too much, then your eyes are sort of distracted and there's too much white space in between. And then when it's good, it just flows. You can see, I think you can visually see which works best. And it comes to white space. Who loves white space? Yay! I love white space too, and a lot of people are afraid of white space. It's also called negative space as well, so you can reverse the colours out from the space. But using white space can really help draw the viewer's attention to the message. So you want to create a focal point on your designs. So here are some examples on packaging and layout as well, where you've used negative space or white space, but it can look really nicely considered in design. And also when it comes to packaging, using space in your packaging, just labels, quite simple. It just looks more luxurious, more premium, and it just brings the focal point for the viewer to the actual message. Examples of balance in your design layout. So this is an example of a bad layout. It's okay, but there's no hierarchy. There's a little bit too much space, but if you just jiggle a few things around, you get a much better layout. Don't be afraid to enlarge the image on a page. Don't be afraid to fill out some of the space, So it's really considering where you put your headers, your hierarchy, what is it you want your viewer to see. So I thought I'd pick out a bad example of design layout. I apologise if this is your product, but it's bad, okay? Come speak to me afterwards if it is yours. You can see that there are too many fonts on there. There's probably about four or five different fonts on there. Don't do that, because it just looks messy. There's no hierarchy. Where does your eye go when you look at this packaging? Mine goes straight to 12. Or does it go to doo-doo and girly, So where is it? What is it? You really want to see baby muslin squares, really. And then, the proportion and scale is wrong. They've just done it themselves. I can see that they've done it themselves. The balance, there's no balance. There's just the same amount of space between every element, and that's not considered. It's just put on a page because you think it has to be on the page. Then there's the colour. Too many colours. The logo is awful, I'm afraid. And readability. There is some type at the bottom of the yellow bit. You can't see it. You cannot read white on yellow because it just doesn't work. So then you need to redo it. I was considering of actually redoing it myself just to show you, but it just took me too much time. But yeah, so that's a really bad example. So think about what your branding looks like. What does your packaging look like as well? So if you're doing stuff like this, relook at it and put some hierarchy and considerations into your design. This is another bad example. You can see why. Oh, yeah, that's what I thought. I was Googling bad examples and a lot came up. So this one was really bad. There's too many fonts. It's no hierarchy. It's just crazy things going on. You cannot read anything, and there's no focus. Your eye is drawn to recycling day. I guess that they got that right. But everything else is wrong about it. There is no balance in this. So don't do things like this. If you're going to do an insert, do it properly. So the next key is colour. So I'm often asked about colour. How do I brand my colour? Do I do it this? Do I do it like that? Well, colour is, all right, actually this is me at the Twist Museum in London, and they've used a particular bulb to make everything black and white, and it's great. But why do we need colour? And if we don't have colour, how would life be? It'll be completely bland and different. So colour plays a really vital role in our lives, and how we respond to our surroundings. We see colour everywhere, and it's really important. It helps us communicate ideas and emotions. It can be used across industries to achieve results and define experiences. And when I say experiences, black, you'll probably associate it to funerals. White night, we miss all that. Depending on where you are in the world, colour is important. Black being funerals, and white actually in Asia is more towards funerals as well, actually, so it's not black. So you need to really consider, if you're selling abroad, how do your colours apply? It also helps us navigate around us. So road signs, information graphics, certain things are coloured in a particular way. Warning signs are always red, So that's been considered. And it also affects our emotions as well. We feel differently about certain colours. The importance of colour for brands. People ask, is it important? Yes, it is important. That's why it's one of the main keys on here. But research has shown that using a particular colour, a brand colour, a signature colour, can cause 80% increase in consumers' recognition of the brand. And that is exactly what you want, is to be recognised for your brand. It helps you become memorable. It also influences your mood. So when I say that, if you think red and yellow, actually, you think of fast food. So that will influence you. It'll make you whet your appetite. You feel hungry. And if you do see those colours, it does trigger some sort of emotional feeling. It also helps you stand out from your competitors and obviously shape consumers' perception, and using the right colours will increase your sales. So by using a wrong colour, if I say maybe you're using a sort of a brownish colour, most people don't like brown, so if you're using brown, that will really put them off your packaging or your product. So it's really important to use the right colours to help you increase sales. Choosing the right colour for your brand, there is colour psychology behind this, but I'm not going to go into detail because it's a whole other topic about colour psychology. But it does affect our emotions and how we pick and choose products. And it helps us, it creates those emotions of like being anxious or excited or relaxed or calm. Some people paint their rooms pink to help them sleep, or, a particular colour. And then in marketing branding, colour psychology is used heavily on this, actually. So if you've not used colour psychology in your branding and marketing, you should really look into, you can just Google it, actually, and read about colour psychology. But how colour impacts consumers' impression of a brand, and whether or not they persuade the consumer to consider specific brands or make a purchase, and it does really work. So this is just an example I pulled off from Pinterest and Canva. The most popular colours used in the top 100 global brands is black. Most people would consider another colour, but black usually with premium products, luxury brands, but it's a safe colour and it works. When you design your logo, you should always have a black version of it anyway, so you can just use that when you don't have the opportunity to use colour. I'm not going to go through it. You can read this on the slides later as well. But the next colour is blue and red, and you'll probably think of all these most popular brands. They are those colours. And then this one I picked out through industry. So industries use certain colours. So you'll see with pharmaceuticals, blue and white are most heavily used, and that's because it's quite clinical. Blue depicts trust as well. So that's why they've used that. But you can have a look at, if you're in a particular area, like health and beauty, it's blue, white and black. So you can have a look at that. It's quite interesting how the same colours come through on these particular areas and industry. So, design. This is my favourite part. So, have you heard of design by committee? Yeah, I hate design by committee because you can never get anywhere. Everyone is a designer, everyone thinks they are a designer, but they shouldn't design. So I would say, don't fail your brand. Actually look into a bit more detail into, as a brand owner, what you need to consider when you're going through this design process. So first thing is you can participate, but leave the skills to a graphic designer or a professional that are designing. Give their input, but it's fine to just let them do their own creative thing because that's what you would have employed them to do. Don't drive the design. Your designer knows what they're doing. They'll give you options and concepts to help you along the way. And obviously input, and they'll give you options to choose, so that's really important. But the main thing is also submitting a clear brief. A lot of designers get bad briefing. I've had bad briefings. I have to keep going backwards, forwards. Did you want, so I have a questionnaire now. I just fill that out, then come back to me. Some actually brand owners actually have come back with really good briefs, have everything together, the logos and everything, and that's great. But when you submit a bad brief, you're leaving the designer to guess, and that's where it all goes wrong because you're not being specific enough. You're not asking them to design or focus on an area that you want. So then you'll think, oh, they're a bad designer. They didn't do what I want. But just think about that. Yeah.
What can you kind of lay out what the core parts of what should be contained in a brief?
Yeah. Do you want me to tell you?
Yes, please.
What, right now?
If it's not too long, yes.
No, they'll need to. It really depends what you're doing on the brief, actually. If you don't, I'll start with if you don't have a brand. If you don't have a brand, you're starting from scratch. You need some sort of brand history. If you want, the owner should know something about the brand and what is it they want to create. Who is your target audience? What is your product? And then if you have got a product, that helps. If you don't, then you're leaving your designers to guess. But you need to sort of think of the real basics. Do you have a logo? Do you need a logo? Who is your target audience? What's your selling point? What is the marketing? How are you going to, launch it? How are you going to get it to market and stuff? So there is quite a few things to sort of think about. That's off the top of my head at the moment, but you can go into detail. If you already have a brand, then I ask much more as well into that. But it is, so a good brief is really important. And then communication. Talk to your designer. Don't let them guess what you're thinking. So if you're not sure, just ask as well. And then setting aside a budget for your design. If you don't have a budget for design, and most brand owners I've come across don't, it's always an afterthought. It's one of the really important things of launching a brand, actually, is to consider a budget for design. And that's with your advertising, your PPC. You're going to have to budget for that as well. So design is really important because that's the first thing your customer is going to see. Oh, well, that's not very nice. Or they love it. And that it's because of their design. And hiring the right designer. So a lot of people they hire a designer. I'm not going to say whether you use Fiverr or not, or whatever sites you use, or freelancers, you need to make sure that they are the right designers. And when I say that, it's because there is a difference. And I've come across a client that wanted their packaging sort of redone, and I looked at their existing packaging. The graphic designer had put the front part of the design on the back of the box. It's laid out on a flat template, but the graphic designer had no idea that was the back of the box. I said, did you know that's the wrong way round? And when you open the box, it's the back. She goes, no. So I had to quickly change it for her. So graphic designer is good. They have knowledge of 2D graphics, print layouts. They have a fair knowledge of packaging and product design. They won't have a complete knowledge, but you should ask them if they do. But graphic designers don't have to be qualified. Anyone can pretend to, or be a graphic designer or train to be a graphic designer off the internet. But it's good to have a qualified graphic designer if you do find one. Packaging designer, exactly the same as a graphic designer, but they are qualified in what they know. I'm qualified in all of these. I know about artworking, packaging design, and the substrates and the materials that you use. Your packaging designer should know about materials and budgets and how to work with templates and artwork that. And an art worker is not creative. They'll just put your creative onto. They generally, in-house design houses, they generally put the artwork onto a template from the graphic designer. So they won't be very creative at all. So what happens when you hit a blank wall? It's like, oh, I've got this, I've got my design, and now what? I've got a branding, a product, but what next? So you need help. So what I generally tend to do with some of the clients that come to me, they're stuck. They've been trading for like a year or 2 or 3 years. They want to branch out to more products, but then they're kind of stuck. I've stuck with this name, and it only applies to this first product that I had, but now I want to create a brand. What do I do next? And they're not sure about social media. They're not sure what next to do. So what I advise is to get a brand design audit. What that means is, well, if you're stuck on a product name or want to expand, I think it's good to sort of have an expert to see where you can go and how you can take that forward. If your brand doesn't stand out enough, you should consider an audit as well. If you're confused about your branding and message and identity, and that's often the case, you've launched a brand and now it's like, oh, what's my brand story? What is my mission? What is my vision? And if you want to build a new audience, you might have got to, you might think, actually, I want to expand into another area, but, I'm not sure how, and I want to build a new audience. How do I do that? Also, if your brand currently, want to know how your brand, So brand audit design is like how your brand looks currently. You might have a good brand actually, but it's like, is it good enough? Because I'm sure a lot of you will question yourselves after a few years, oh, is it okay? Am I doing all right? Can I do better? Or what am I getting wrong? So this will be a really good opportunity for you to sort of assess what you currently have. And then you might just want new brand direction. I'm tired of this brand. I don't think it's doing very well. What can I do to sort of, I've already trademarked my logo, I've already done this, what can I do next? So, consider that. So in summary, to have a successful brand design, think about the use of photography, typography, font pairing, use hierarchy, consider your layouts, using color, have a brand signature color if you can, commission the right designer and get a brand design audit. So this comes to the end of my presentation. I actually I have an exclusive offer only for you guys on this cruise. I do have an offer on my website, but it's not at this price actually. It's available for 1 month only at that price. You can still buy it. You can pay top dollar for it if you want. This is the QR code. It will take you to what the brand audit is, and it will go into details on what you would expect from that. Basically, a design audit that I do, I diagnose your brand, everything visual from social media, your marketing, your emails, everything. I will look at that and diagnose it like a doctor, and I'll tell you what's wrong and what you need to improve on it.
Thanks, Kity.
So thank you. And any questions? I am actually going to be at 3 o'clock at the Java for any questions as well. But yeah, you can clap. Thank you.